We are reading the Parshas of Mattot and Massei this week. And in Mattot we read about the desire of the tribes of Reuvein and Dan to take their land not in Eretz Yisrael proper, but on the east side of the Jordan River in what today is the country of Jordan. Moshe is not at all impressed by this desire, and in fact he compares them to their ancestors 38 years before, the first generation, those who came out of Egypt, in their rejection of the land with the incident of the spies. And in fact, he tells them that they've taken it even further. This is what he says to them in chapter 32, verse 14, Perek Lamed Bet, Pasuk Yud Daled. V'hinei kamtem tachat avoteichem, tarbut anashim chatayim. Behold, you have stood up in place of your forefathers, a group of men who are sinners, lispot od al charon af Hashem al Yisrael, to add further to the anger of God to the Jewish people. You are further damaging the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. The Maggid of Dubno, Rabbi Yaakov Krantz, the great rabbi of the 1700s, points out that Moshe is not just criticizing them for repeating the sin of their forefathers, but for adding on to it. Now he says, how are they actually adding on? Surely it's merely a repeat of the same sin. So the Maggid of Dubno was famous for his parables and stories. He would always have a story with which he would explain deep ideas in the Torah. And he said we can explain this with the story of a poor man who comes into town looking for help, alms, support, somewhere to stay. And he has the misfortune to bump into a practical joker, what in Hebrew we call a leitz. Now you get different kinds of jokers. Some people just have a playful sense of humor, but there's no real malice in what they do. Other people are really mean with their jokes, and their jokes can be very hurtful. And our poor man had the misfortune to run into such a joker. When he asks him, is there somewhere I can stay? He says, absolutely, come and stay at my house. But unbeknownst to the poor man, the leitz leads him to the most expensive tavern in town, the most expensive inn. And he brings him in to stay there and introduces it to him as if it's his own home, invites him to sit, have a meal, take a room. The man enjoys himself, feels so welcomed and pampered, wakes up the next morning and is horrified to be presented with a bill. He discovers that now not only is he broke, but he's all of a sudden in debt. He goes out into the road to ask passers-by for help because now he's in an even worse situation than he was before. And once again, this joker passes by, this time in disguise. I would imagine he had one of those stick-on moustaches and a pair of fake glasses. And the late says to him, what's the problem? He explains the situation. So the late says to him, listen, what's the problem? Go back and stay with them. You can't pay off the bill, so you might as well run up a higher bill, go back to the inn, enjoy. And the Maggid of Dubno says that's the worst possible advice. Because right now the man is in trouble. Right now the man has found himself in a hole, but he can get himself out. He can work his way out of it. He can erase that debt and continue in his life. But if he takes the Leitz's advice, he's going to be stuck in a debt that he can never get out of. He says, we are that man, and the Leitz is the Yetzer Hara. At times we find ourselves misled into things that we shouldn't really be doing, into things that are not true to ourselves. But the question is, once we've found ourselves in that situation, what do we do? Do we rise from it? Do we learn from the experience to become better and stronger people? Do we have teshuvah? Or do we stay where we are? Do we add on? Lispot od. To add on further to what we've been doing. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon says, Sheva yipol tzadik vakum. The righteous falls 7 times, yet he will arise. My Rabbi Israel Goldfein of blessed memory used to point out the difference between the righteous and the wicked is not that the righteous doesn't fall, but the wicked falls. It's not that the righteous doesn't sin. The righteous also makes mistakes. The righteous also falls. The difference lies in what happens afterwards. The righteous has resilience and an inner strength and fortitude that he can admit to his mistake, he can deal with the situation, he can make amends, he can apologize, he can do what he needs to do, he can rise from the experience, grow from it and move forward. And it probably will be that he'll fall again. He falls 7 times, and 7 is a number that our sages use to mean many. He'll fall many times and arise many times. But the key is that he never gives up. When Moshe sees Reuvein and Gad, he despairs. Because what he worries has happened here is not only have the Jewish people given up the opportunity to the land 38 years before, with the incident of the spies that led to the first Tisha B'Av, which we're in the 3 weeks now, building up to the 9 days. Not only that tragedy, but he sees even worse than that these tribes haven't even learned from it. That they haven't even taken that lesson and developed a love for the land of Israel and a passion for being a part of the Jewish people and the Jewish future. And that's something that's so painful to him, that he sees as something to criticize, possibly even more than the original sin itself. Fortunately, Moshe is largely mistaken. The tribes of Reuvein and Gad do not do this out of a lack of appreciation of the land of Israel, though our sages do have a little criticism for that as well. But it isn't the mistake that he was worried that it was. But the lesson for all of us is clear. We make mistakes. We're human beings. There's nothing to be ashamed of. What we can be proud of, however, is when we move forward, is when we rise, is when we take the mistakes that we've made, learn and grow from them, and become better people. Shabbat Shalom.